Thank you for joining in today's Connection Point End Times News Briefing podcast. Hope you're all doing super well and having a fantastic day so far. Let's get into some news items to be aware of. First of all, out of the Jerusalem Post had this interesting article that talked about how Iran deepens breach of nuclear deal at underground enrichment site. So this article talked about how Iran deepens a key breach of its 2015 nuclear deal enrichment of uranium with a large number of advanced centrifuge machines in an underground plant as it faces off with the new U.S. administration on salvaging the accord. Tehran has recently accelerated its breach of deals, raising pressure on U.S. President Joe Biden as both sides say that they're willing to come back in compliance with a badly eroded agreement if the other side moves first. Iran began its breach in 2019 in response to Washington's withdrawal in 2018 under President Trump on the reimposition of the U.S. economic sanctions against Tehran that were lifted under the deal. So what we're seeing here is they're just going to do what they want to do and try to quickly get their nuclear bomb going. And so with all these centrifuges and enrichment of uranium, they're pushing it as hard as they can, as quickly as they can, because now they've got the green light to do so, especially if Biden wants to join, and they're going to give them billions of dollars to help them with this. Also, speaking of Iran, this report also came out of the Jerusalem Post, it could be weeks away from enough nuclear material for the bomb. So Iran would be weeks away from having sufficient material to develop a nuclear weapon if it continues to violate the 2015 nuclear deal, according to the U.S. Secretary of State Anton Blinken warned Monday in an interview with NBC News. U.S. President Joe Biden administration would consider new sanctions against North Korea and other possible sanctions against Russia, he said in his first television interview since taking office the previous week. It could only be a matter of weeks if Iran continues to lift restraints on the nuclear deal that President Trump pulled out of. And so when pressed about whether the release of detained Americans would be an absolute condition for an expanded nuclear treaty, he did not comment. So irrespectively of any deal, those Americans need to be released, period, he said. We're going to focus on making sure that they come home one way or another. On Sunday, Iran rejected any negotiations or changes into participating in its nuclear deal with world powers after French president said new talks should include Saudi Arabia. The remark came after the White House confirmed a veteran diplomat, Robert Malley, was named special envoy for Iran, a key member of U.S. President Barack Obama's nuclear negotiating team. Malley is a controversial figure in Israel, where he's viewed soft on Tehran and tough on Jerusalem. And that's what it's going to be with the Biden administration. They're going to support Iran, and go against Israel. That's kind of what the Obama administration did. You see that time after time in the way they treated Israel, and the way they're gushing with love for Iran and wanting to give them billions of dollars in support. Speaking of weapons, there's another interesting article that came out of the Mirror report that talks about the Russian scientists suspect a Doomsday weapon project involving a deadly Ebola virus. So Russian scientists are suspected a Doomsday weapon involving a Ebola virus. A unit in Moscow's FSB spy agency linked with these poisonings that might be programmed, codenamed Toledo. This is one of those end-time scenarios. We know that there's an EMP that can easily wipe out the electric grid. There's certainly this weapon of different viruses that can be released in different countries, as it goes off. And so this is one of those interesting articles. It's a warning to many countries. Hopefully they take this very seriously. But this virus is deadly. So no doubt it can certainly be a threat to every country around the world if it happens. On another report that talks about how Biden stiffs the UEA again, reverses Trump decision to remove tariffs on key ally in peace. So this came out of Politico website. The Biden administration has delivered a blow to the U.S. United Arab Emirates, UEA, for the second time in many weeks, reversing decisions that the Trump administration to remove aluminum tariffs that would be effective in February 3rd. President Trump signed an exemption for the UAE from a 10% aluminum tariff that he imposed in 2018. The move was perceived as a reward for them as a peace agreement with Israel, known as the Abraham Accords. That deal opened the door to other peace normalization agreements among Israel and Arab states, much to the irritation of Iran. But what we're seeing so far with all of Biden's moves is just to undo everything that Trump has done for the benefit of America or other countries to help them out. Also, on another article in dealing with the Middle East, this one came out of Breitbart that talks about Biden puts risk in the Middle East back on a path of war. So, as presidents like to say that their predecessors left them a mess, yet the Middle East policy of President Trump left his successor an extraordinary gift of peace and stability. Peace agreements were emerging almost on a weekly between Israel and their Arab neighbors. Iran, struggling under the burden of the U.S. sanctions, was isolated, broke, and racked by internal turmoil. In Afghanistan, a tentative deal with the Taliban meant that U.S. troops could look forward to coming home. Trump left the U.S. in a position of historic strategic advantage, but like President Barack Obama, who squandered the gains of the Iraq surge and withdrew before the country was stable enough to prevent the rise of ISIS, Biden is throwing away many gains the Trump administration achieved in the region. If he stays the course that Trump has charted, Biden can maximize his leverage on Iran and entice Saudi Arabia to make peace with Israel. On Friday, for example, the White House confirmed that President Biden named Robert Malley as his envoy to Iran. Malley is a radical with a long record of foreign policy failure, kind of like all of Biden's administration cabinet members so far. But Blinken is thus for the only member of the Biden administration to acknowledge Trump succeeded in confronting China, foreign ties between Serbia, Kosovo, and orchestrating the Abraham Accords. Blinken was also forced to acknowledge during his Senate confirmation here that he had been wrong about Iraq War, Libya War, and the Syrian Civil War, and those who continue to progress in the Middle East are pinning their hopes on the idea that Blinken is the best of the bad lot who appear to have failed upwards into their jobs. But the rest of the administration will not accept the Biden-Obama approach to the Middle East failed, or that Trump's America First approach succeeded. And as a result, instead of peace, Biden may be putting the region back on a path to war. And that's kind of what we're seeing so far on a weekly and daily basis, is the disaster of this Biden administration, putting America last and putting others in harm's way. The last article to bring to your attention is that China gives Biden a dire warning, says must adhere to China rules on these issues in dealing with the situation in the Red China Sea, what's going on in Taiwan and Hong Kong, Tibet. And so the top Chinese diplomat laid out red lines on Monday for President Biden to avoid crossing with China. So even though it would be to the advantage of everyone within the region if the U.S. did get involved and try to help out across the board with these countries, with these deals, but China's playing that superpower card, and they will dictate, they will tell the world what they want, and you have to bow down to them. And this, of course, is what the Biden administration will do on not only just this matter, but many other matters, because Biden does have ties and backdoor deals for his benefit and for his son's benefit. So every day we're watching and seeing how this world is unfolding, as the Bible does talk about in the end times, what it's going to be like. So this is why we need to understand the end time events, the signs of the times, and everything's lining up quite nicely, and all the pieces of the puzzle are slowly coming together. So stay watchful and aware. Keep pressing on for the Lord. Stay grounded in the Word. Amen. And that's it for today's update. Until next time, God bless.
Thank you.